Hello and welcome to Ask a Mom, Operator Syndrome, um, mental health, and what is really killing the kids. We're going to talk about space and technology, the industry working right, the cost of cognitive warfare, and how all of these systems over time are creating what we call operator syndrome, which operator syndrome was first coined as a term in understanding the special forces community and a whole slew of symptoms that they have experienced. It's all based on the fact that they are living in extremely stressful situations over a long period of time, and the stress that it causes not just on their bodies, but on their minds, and how that also trickles down to their families. And we take that one step further, and the fact that, we've been living in the end of the world for, goodness, I don't know how long. America has been around for 250 years, and the American church has, talked about fire and brimstone and all of that for, just as long. So if you did not know that, if you did not realize that, welcome to the apocalypse, everyone. This is not my first time. With all of that, today we are moving into talking about parallel systems, the multiverse, and the call for a national strike to begin on May 1st, which is also May Day. And the impact that something like a national strike can have on a community if they do not have the resources and um, just infrastructure required to maintain resiliency while literally under attack. Um, the systems as we know it right now are very much, society is being held hostage by billionaires and just, assholes who are using war as a stock manipulation tool. And because of that, we all, in some way, could be dealing with the stresses associated with operator syndrome, as we are looked at and seen as nothing more than a tool in the system of, whatever the government that be dictates. So today we're going to start off with a little bit of reading. I'm going to share some thoughts and a little bit about some of the work that I'm also doing. So this is The Wounded Storyteller. It is a collection of traumatic tales of E.T.A. Hoffmann. E.T.A. Hoffmann was a German romantic author. He is considered one of the original forces behind the Gothic horror um, genre, which is probably my absolute favorite genre. Um, the back of it talks about how, so He was born in 1776 and lived until 1822. And his innovative stories explore ideas of madness, genius, doppelgangers, artificial intelligence, and the boundaries between realities and dreams. And I found this book at Politics and Prose in DC. It's an independent bookstore out there. And not only is the cover art absolutely gorgeous, E.T.A. Hoffman as a writer is like my favorite because it just makes your brain itch as you read, try to figure out what he is challenging you to do. And I'm going to start with just reading two paragraphs from the foreword, which was written by Karen Russell. So, influence is mysterious. We're so rarely aware of who or what is moving levers inside us. When Natalie Frank first asked me if E.T.A. Hoffman was an influence on my work, I sheepishly admitted that I was not familiar with these tales. But as I read them, I realized that I was wrong. I had a strong sense of deja vu from the very first line. I felt like I was doing dream genealogy, filling in a high branch on the family tree. He is one of the great grandfathers of my imagination, and probably yours too. There are the influences we claim, the ones we are conscious of, the teachers we seek out, and then there are people like E.T.A. Hoffmann, the 19th century German romantic writer, composer, and artist whose visions were so powerful they spread across every continent and discipline and continued to circulate among us. Hoffman's influence turns out to be everywhere, and like pollen generalized in the atmosphere, it often goes undetected. His uncanny tales have been so thoroughly assimilated into popular culture that he now exists in what the Italian folklorist and fabulous Italian Calvino called the mute and anonymous molds of thought. I love the imagery of that last line, that it's the mute and anonymous molds of thought. And everything that I work with and look at and research and all that is right there at the cusp of understanding the applied sciences and the social sciences and how the two of these have over time just kind of moved, ebbed and flowed back and forth, debating the, you know, foundations of humanity and how and what, constitutes the universe around us. And because of that, um, and just whatnot, I came across that and just understanding how information influences people without them even realizing it. You end up questioning whether or not what you believe is the same as what someone else believes. But on top of that, if you were raised in one way and then start molding your cognitive mind in a different way from how you were raised, you kind of end up in this space of what's real. And it's been an absolutely insane week of just adjusting to new schedules, but also with working on and with new individuals in the space and watching the different LLMs on top of the different messaging that is coming across social media, whether it is from our government, other governments, the um, I just dropped a blank on the word I was trying to think of, propaganda. There we go. Woo! All right. The propaganda machine is strong and rolling as it does. So, like I said, today we're talking about parallel systems in the multiverse. And I'm really excited because one of the other projects I'm working on is actually going to be looking at the neurodiverse mind as understanding, as a way of understanding the multiverse and how these systems work together and kind of moving us forward in the state of what's real and what's not, and what is hallucinations versus dreams, and what are dreams, anyways, and all of that cognitive space that, again, is very difficult to disprove, but it's also very difficult to prove. So you end up going back and forth debating on what is truth. When it comes to systems in and of themselves, you need to realize, that the systems, they're the systems themselves are what make up this multiverse. And that's because, and we've talked about it before, how you have the commerce, which kind of controls the public information. You have the religious, and consider religious culture, you have that dictating the private industry and information. But then you have governance. And governance is supposed to bridge this gap of ensuring that the rights of individuals are not being manipulated. But quite often, the government is the one doing the manipulating. So, what do you do when within all of these systems you begin realizing that there may or may not be a corruption of the system? And then as we continue to dive into what systems there are, we have your local and state, or your local, city, and county, which all of those tend to have to operate together, working this in the center of jurisdictional boundaries. And jurisdictional boundaries are what we see on the map of understanding who is in control of the people and resources of a particular geographical area. But then it even goes further into understanding, okay, well, if I'm in charge of this geographical area and the resources and people, what about the resources beneath the ground of that geographical area? What about those spaces that are outside of the geographical area? What if I have something that crosses from my jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. And who is in charge of maintaining that balance? So then you have the state, and depending on your national country, what your nationality and the government and how it is kind of dictated. In America, we have states, but then we also have federal. And the federal government's job is supposed to maintain the balance between states. So no one state has more power. However, if they have more people, then they also have more power. So then we end up in this back and forth of who and what are in charge of the people and the resources of any geographical location, whether that is the home I live in or the home I claim to have left. But what happens when there are disagreements as to who should be in charge of what? And that's where we move and look over to juris our man, I just got tongue tied there. We move to the justice system that is supposed to handle the elements of disagreements. However, you have the civil courts, but you also have criminal courts, and both of those are operated completely differently, and you have to have specific requirements in order to get evidence to have it be a criminal matter. However, if you don't have the evidence, you can sue and plead your case at a civil level, and you'll find that something is owed to you. But even that then moves into this whole conservative mindset and liberal mindset and North versus South polarization all over the place as forces all around the world are arguing and screaming, and the noise is so chaotic that we don't know who is for us. So, as we look at how systems across the multiverse operate and attempt to further narrow down the who, what, where, when, why of who can actually help in a situation where an individual is being taken advantage of because of their inability to know the proper person to talk to or have access to the proper funding or just being able to function. The hypocrisy within the system is what trips out people's brains, especially when it comes to kids and impressionable adults, because some adults are very impressionable, other adults, um, they're very stubborn and set in their ways. So, when it comes to the great debate of who's at fault for the fall of humanity, how do we determine what system we're operating in? And then as we try to figure out what system are we operating in, we're asking, okay, what time is it? We have time zones, and we have moon time, and we have central time, and then we have astrological time and dates and all of these elements that are used to pinpoint an exact point in time and space. And the whole question is, was that point fair? Was that exact instance something that shouldn't have happened? And who's at fault for it happening? And we then come into the circle of financial systems and information systems and all of these systems where individuals will copy, cut, and paste the same formula over and over and over, hoping for a different reaction when it's really all the same, which my baby boy, and he's not a baby by no means, he's taller and larger than I am, but he is 15 and he always laughs because that's literally the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. So, what do we do? How do we change the systems of a multiverse when all of the systems are the same systems, but they're just slightly different than the one before because it's a different point and place in time? And that's where the question comes in of, when do you just stop? When do you just say, enough is enough? I'm out. And that's what a strike is about. And so, starting on May 1st, we have the indivisible May Day strong, no work, no school, no shopping, nothing. That is also the day that we're going to start our summer camp, which I am so excited about. It is unreal. Cyberspace Summer Camp. It's a hybrid summer series for teens, but read teens as teens at heart as well, because it's going to be geared towards the high school age level, but also, I mean, who doesn't want to go and pretend like it's 1980 and just remember what it's like to not worry about all of the stresses of tomorrow so you can focus on taking care of yourself today? And that is where we find ourselves, in this place of figuring out, what do we do next? How do we build a parallel system that has the strength and resiliency to maintain the needs of a community during a long-term strike? Because the government has decided that they're going to do their own thing. So you know what? Fuck them. We don't need them. They need us. And that's the challenge of worker strikes, where they want to leverage legal warfare and get things so caught up in court that you never come to a solution until the solution doesn't even help anyone. But that's okay, because every now and then there are individuals who are crazy enough to come up with a different way and a different plan. And I just so happen to be crazy enough. but I'm gonna need some help. So, um, I'm going to I've already started sharing information on what we're going to do, but as I said in the last episode, we looked at what do we do next? And I said, you have to follow. You have to find me. And we're going to get into this chase of learning the analog. So that way, in this digital world of leveraging each and every second and voice fight and everything to be used against you, I'm going to remind you that you, my friend, have a right to be silent. And sometimes the whispers are the exact signal needed to break through all the noise. Life is chaos, but you can learn to dance and move around the chaos in order to create an asymmetrical growth that allows another person to be seen. It allows another creature to be able to continue to live on. And without getting so completely lost in the multiverse of madness and the parallel systems as they currently are, I want to build a parallel system as it should be, as the safety net to catch those who are struggling and just need a little help, a little boost, a little smile saying, you know what, it's okay. Things are going to be fine. Don't know how, but we're going to get through it, and we're going to get through it together. So, as we cut this episode a little short, mostly because my dumbass had the video got all fucked essentially, and I am recording this for the second time today, as well as the fact that I'll need to be leaving shortly to take baby girl to after school care. She's not in after school care, but teaching. Um, and maybe I've said this already, maybe not. Who knows? I have two kids, 15, baby boy, and 19, baby girl. And baby girl, she's got a mouth on her like her mama. And so you'll hear her in the background when mama's reporting because she's got to get her 2 cents in. Flippin' love my kids. They are amazingly chaotic and were raised by 2 Marines, which just makes them even more amazingly chaotic. And as we continue the journey of understanding what's going on in the world, and I let you know, hey, just ask a mom. Moms are so full of information, and if nothing else, you'll end up with a fantastic story, usually about their kid and some dumbass thing they did, because kids are dumb. And I don't mean that as, oh, they're dumb. I just mean that as they haven't learned yet and do some dumbass shit. And I know that because I was a kid too. And I'm still a kid sometimes because holy cow. Like I said, I'm recording this for the second time today because I wasn't paying attention and the recording just stopped. But I kept talking. And, you know, when life has been going at the speed of, you know, bombs headed directly for you, it's exhausting. And so, my plan with summer camp, especially, because as I said, it's going to run from May Day all the way to September. And I'm gonna just continue talking and being chaotically delightful and sharing my knowledge of the world around me within the context of I had a career in the space and military intelligence realm, and I've had to turn down jobs, good paying jobs at that, because of the ethical line I refuse to cross. And so because I refuse to cross that ethical line, and yet I refuse to cross that ethical line, but I'm still trying to determine what ethical lines there are that have not been discussed because people are too afraid to make someone upset and hurt their feelings. When I was working as a contractor, specifically, when I very first left the Marine Corps, I took a year off for, um I was gonna attempt to homeschool you, baby girl, but, you know, I love her, but 1, I'm pretty sure I would've killed her if we stayed home together. Because oh, who knows? Maybe baby girl will join me on a call and ask her own questions and share her own bits of information, but, um, I took a year off, I had my son, and in that year, I determined I'm not a stay-at-home mom, at least not a stay-at-home mom for toddlers, because I was pretty sure I was gonna kill my kid, and I needed to go back to work. So then I went back to work, and I ended up in a very toxic workplace, and they did not like the fact that as a female, I would call them out on their bullshit. Um, I remember and I think it was, like, the 2nd time I was pulled aside by my boss, and it was, "Now listen, um, we're a kinder, more gentler organization, and, well, you're hurting some feelings." There. I'm like, "Yes!" That particular one, the individual in question had, like, half as much experience as me and did not like that I got a promotion over them. And then, like, I kid you not, dude was, like, 6'2", probably between 300 and 400 pounds. Like, he was a big guy, and he was letting people know that I was making him cry. I am 5'1". Do you see me? People look at me and they're like, "Oh, she's so cute." Yeah,
You'd be counted with the kids. I regularly get counted with the kids.
exactly. So, anywho, we are going to continue this conversation tomorrow because, we're just going to cut it short today so we can get other life things done. And I thank you all for joining me in my delightfully chaotic, and I hope you continue to enjoy, tell your friends, subscribe, do whatever, but don't let the patriarchy win. We're gonna hack the patriarchy this summer, and it's gonna be fantastic. Have a great, what is it, Wednesday?
Yeah.
Have a great Wednesday, and we are getting back in the swing of a new schedule, and it's great.